Hi, I'm Amy.
And I'm Debbie. We are Tessie Pearl, Community for Widows.
Grief is the great equalizer. At a moment's notice, I could be in grief, or you, Debbie, could be in grief. Any one of us could be. So we're all companions in grief, here to help, to serve one another. What comes to mind when I say grief is the great equalizer?
It's one of those things that when you experience it, you can never say, I understand what you're going through, because each person, it's different for everybody, but it gives you a greater empathy and an understanding. I may not know exactly how you are feeling today, but I've been similar.
Yeah.
And it brings you together.
It does. It does create a connection in
And
ways
unity.
that other things can't.
And you are open to understanding and knowing what they may need. And you're more free to offer that, where someone who has not experienced that grief and they think, oh, you need to be alone to deal with this. You, as going through grief and of experiencing that, you understand that they may need more.
Yeah, than isolation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. There are several needs, I think, in grief. When my dad died, I realized in creating this video that I needed 4 things. I needed to be seen. I needed to be heard. I needed to be cared for. And I'll explain what that means. And then I also needed space to openly mourn. And so I thought about a little bit about what that looked like. And to be seen, not a lot of people knew that he died. I was in a situation where I had just moved 3 times in 3 years. So where I was when he died, I was not around people who even knew me.
So it was a new community.
It was in fact, it was like I had just moved to that space 3 weeks before.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking very new. But an acquaintance found out that he had died, and it was so sweet because she baked some strawberry cupcakes and she dropped them off to me, and she'll really never know how sweet and tender that was, because not only did I feel seen and known that he had died, but strawberry cake was his favorite.
Oh my goodness.
She had no idea.
Oh, wow.
But she brought them to me, and it just brought tears to my eyes. I really felt seen. Like that's what we would have on his birthday every year, was strawberry cake and strawberry ice cream.
And that is something I would not think to bake.
No, I know. So that is one way I look back and I just think, wow, I really know that she knew, she could feel of my pain and gave me this little gift.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. To be heard. We need to talk about our loved ones. Like, we need to be able to share about who they were, what their life was like, what was our relationship with them like, how did it evolve, what happened during their death, like all of these things we need to be able to talk about, and we don't as a community. And actually, I didn't have that. I didn't have anyone I could just sit and just share my heart and remember and talk about. And I'm really sad about that. And I would hope in sharing that people would understand the need for that.
Oh, it's very important.
And it's really important that we,
because that's
our
the
listening
actively
ears.
mourning part. The grief is keeping it inside and talking about it and getting the emotions out. That is the mourning. And that's the step that we really skip over in our society. As we've mentioned before, we hide our emotions because we don't want to impede on anybody else. But that is the most important step, is that mourning. Yeah.
And it's so interesting because grief is the great equalizer. We're all born and we all die. It's part of who we are as human beings and part of our existence. And yet we deny this part of death. We celebrate the birth, but yet we don't want to talk about the death. And then when someone does die, it's hush hush. So I really would have liked to have been heard through that process. The third one was being cared for. And it doesn't mean that I wanted somebody to sweep in and just take care of everything like a knight in shining armor. That's not my belief system.
Yeah.
But it meant that I needed to be cared for. I needed to put things into practice physically, mentally, financially to help me manage that time. And even now, when a grief burst occurs. And so I really being self-aware and practicing self-care and knowing when things are getting too much, when you need added buffer, added help, asking for help.
Yeah.
If you don't know something, seek professional help. I had to talk to other professionals just to help me become educated on what to do in certain situations. So that's all falls under being cared for. It's that education and just taking care of me. And then I'm one that, you need space to openly mourn. So whether that means you spend some time in isolation, that's okay. Whether that means also, in addition, you're surrounded by family, friends who are giving you hugs, if that's something that means something to you, taking on some maybe added responsibility to help lift you during that time and lighten maybe some of the burdens that are on you during the grieving process. Accept all of that help. Now, what about a community? It's one thing I didn't talk about. What about community and grief? When I say that, why is that important? If grief is the great equalizer, why is community then important?
Because community is where you get the connection from human to human.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be within, as we've talked about, within the same age bracket. This is where we need a variety of ages around us. And it's that support, the
wisdom and
experience. And from children,
it's their innocence and their childlike play and love. Yeah.
And we need that in our times of sadness and mourning.
Yeah.
And so you want to open the door to have community around you.
So I want to share a little story, and it just really drives home the power of community and the need for support in difficult times, and how with community we weather the storm so much better than if we were to do it on our own. I started doing ice baths about a year and a half ago. And I remember my very first one. Purpose is it decreases inflammation. There's a lot of health benefits. And it also widens your nervous system's window of tolerance so that when things do come, you have developed some techniques to really get through those difficult times. Breathing techniques and other things. Well, my first one I did at a retreat. So I was surrounded by, and we had created a safe space with a group of women, and there was a leader, and about 10 of us went into a freezing river. And we were very intentional. We all held hands. We all crept down into this river, holding hands, got into a circle. And then, on the count of 3, you all dip up to your neck and you're sitting in this freezing river. And I will tell you, it was so interesting. I had no problems sitting in that river. And there were some, really struggling. And we were a solid support for each other. We just held on, and I stayed in that river for 10 minutes, and that was the goal.
Wow.
Some stayed longer for like 15. I chose to get out with a few others. And it was such a surreal and enriching and exhilarating, actually, experience, because I realized we just did something that was really hard, and we did it together. Like a month later, I go to a yoga studio, and I'm going to do ice baths, but they are 3 separate tubs with ice. And so 3 women got into the tubs. We all went down together, and the yoga instructor was our cheerleader. She was our breath coach if we were starting to struggle. And I was about a minute in when I really started to struggle. And so she came, that yoga instructor, right face to face, not in the tub with me, but face to face, breathing me through it, trying to get me to calm, trying to help me to stay. And by a minute 50, I was out. Like, get me out as fast as I could. And the goal was 2 minutes. And I just thought that's so interesting. She's on the sidelines and she's really trying to help coach me, right, as a direct coach. But even having that one-on-one wasn't enough to help me endure as it was getting all those women in that lake together. And then the final time was I tried to do it on my own, and I couldn't even last 10 seconds. And I realized my nervous system is dysregulated. This is actually spiking my cortisol and putting me into a stress response. And I'm not at a space where I can handle this right now. So this isn't something I should be doing right now at that time. And so I stopped. But the lesson was so crystal clear. When we try to grieve or do life on our own, it is so hard. We want out as fast as possible. If we have just a coach trying to get us through, it was helpful and she helped me last longer than I would have on my own, but I still couldn't do it. But when I was with that community of women and we were championing and literally holding hands,
touching.
And we could endure. I actually could have stayed in longer if I wanted to. But there was a woman next to me that really wanted to get out, and I was kind of the one helping her. But it was amazing. And so in Tessie Pearl, that is our goal. We are here as a literal community of women to have you and other widows support one another. And we're here to coach you. But the reality is you are this network, a beautiful network that will strengthen and help each other through some really difficult times. So with that, we want to invite you to our retreats. They are in person, up in the mountains, the beautiful Homestead Resort in Midway, Utah, right at the foothills or valley of the Wasatch Mountains. And it's so peaceful. We went and visited again yesterday.
It was so beautiful. We want to share that with all of you.
We were just walking the grounds and it just felt so serene, so peaceful. But there you'll have an opportunity to have your grief witnessed. You'll have the opportunity to really learn some tools to help you release some of your emotions as you grieve and openly mourn. And you'll have then opportunities, though, to meet with women and have some new experiences that are fun. Share some of the things we're going to do.
We are going to get to learn how to hula. I've never even attempted that, so that's going to be fun.
And our instructor is so wonderful. She actually lost her hula partner. He died, and he was her everything, and she stopped doing hula until she realized that part of her healing process was to begin again. And so she instructs it in such a mindful, positive, compassionate way as a way to grieve. And she's really turned it into something beautiful.
That sounds wonderful.
So we're excited to have you learn from her.
And then we're going to take your creativity and we're going to learn to watercolor. And it doesn't matter if you think you're good or not. We're going to learn to express ourselves. We'll have an instructor take us through that. And then we are going to learn to make cheese, something I've never done. And we will have an opportunity to do workshops that you can bring some of your questions and financial questions, life questions, and we will have discussions and learn from each other in those.
Yeah. And the grounds have a beautiful pool. They're right on a mineral hot spring. So we're going to go soak in the hot spring and soothe our body and receive the nutrients, minerals from that. And if you want to, you can play pickleball or a round of golf. They have a beautiful golf course. And we hope to do a seasonal activity. So if it's snowing outside or cold, there are ice castles nearby or a sleigh ride. Maybe we'll go out on a 4x or a side-by-side, let you ride up and see the views in the mountains. And maybe even do a little bit of anger releasing and
go
do
out
some
and just
scream.
do some yelling.
Yeah, we're gonna allow you space to do that if you're confident and comfortable. And it's going to be wonderful. We are so excited to have you join us. There are many dates open, so find what fits with your calendar.
And we are intentionally keeping these retreats on a small scale. We want it to be very intimate and where you ladies feel very comfortable with each other and sharing your most intimate thoughts. So thank you for joining us today. Check us out at tessiepearl.com or at Tessie Pearl Community. Everything about our retreats and coaching is on our website. Leave your comments and please subscribe.